Our top story this hour, the Russian Foreign Ministry says it considers the poisoning of former spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter as an act of terror. It has just held a briefing on the case with a number of ambassadors attending the event. Nadira Tudor has more details.
The Foreign Ministry spokesperson said a number of things. Firstly, he reiterated that Russia could have in no way benefited from the attack. Moscow says they consider this to be a terror attack. Secondly, they stated that the UK refused to cooperate with Russia, which is against the Convention on Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. And he mentioned the attack could have been orchestrated by another party, but then clarified that Russia is not pinning the blame on anyone and asked that his words not be distorted. Let's take a quick look.
We see that the British authorities are becoming ever more nervous, and it's clear why. The clock is ticking. They have backed themselves into a corner. They will eventually have to provide answers to the increasing number of unanswered questions. We expect from London and from the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons an official, detailed account of developments regarding the Skripal case. We need comprehensive conclusions and detailed confirmations.
A spokesperson for the Defence Ministry also spoke out. He said that it seems that Britain is afraid to conduct an unbiased investigation into the Skripal case and that the UK presented no proof that gas allegedly used to poison Skripal was made in Russia. He went on to say that the formula of the substance dubbed Novichok was published by scientist Mirzayanov, who is working with the US government. The Russian Foreign Ministry went on to talk specifically about Britain and said it was and is one of the states that have been implementing a program on the development of new chemical weapons since the 1970s. He added that the Porton Down lab in Britain is used to conduct experiments involving use of chemical weapons. Now, we did have a reaction from a London embassy spokesperson who stated that Moscow doesn't have to present anything in terms of Skripal case, but is ready for a joint investigation. London has proposed Russia a dialogue over this case. However, it doesn't see a constructive approach from Moscow. Now, the ambassadors that did not attend were Britain, US and France. Britain and the US sent embassy workers instead. A Kremlin spokesperson reacted to the UK decision by saying that it showed unwillingness to hear Russia's answers to its questions. Now, Moscow to date has denied any involvement in the attempted murders of Sergei and Yulia Skripal. The Russian former intelligence officer Skripal and his daughter Yulia were allegedly poisoned in Salisbury. Both of them remain in a critical condition. And so this diplomatic spat that has gone on for a while now looks to continue to go on for some time.
Nadira Tudor reporting there. Well, meanwhile, the UK's Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson has said he believes that the Skripal poisoning leads back inexorably to the Kremlin. However, he went on to say that this case shouldn't lead to a cessation of all dialogue with Russia, adding that London wasn't trying to start a new Cold War.
Well, I want to be very clear that we do not wish to engage in a new Cold War, and I deprecate that term. I remember the old Cold War.
OK, well, let's get the thoughts now of Hans Frederick von Plotz. He's a former German ambassador to Russia. Good evening. Thank you very much for your time and coming on to RT this evening. Firstly, what's your reaction to what Boris Johnson just said there? He said that, look, we don't want a new Cold War, but when you look at the fact that the UK ambassador perhaps didn't turn up to the briefing that was held by the Russian Foreign Ministry today, I mean, is that really being achieved?
I think we should take Boris Johnson's word at face value. If he says he doesn't want a Cold War, he is probably expressing the general views held also across Europe and the West, and I think that is applaudable.
With regard to the fact that the UK, US and French ambassadors didn't go to this briefing that was held today by the Russian Foreign Ministry, are you surprised by that, and what perhaps do you think they were trying to achieve?
It is pure speculation if I try to talk about their possible motives, and I don't like speculation.
OK, but as a former ambassador, I mean, if you try to put yourself in their shoes for the moment, obviously something like that isn't going to go down well with Russia, clearly.
Well, I mean, we have exchanged words without end. I think what is now in the order of the day is an international thorough examination of all accessible and available facts. And I think it is important and would be also encouraging if Russia decided to be part of that international examination.
I mean, it's offered to do that, hasn't it? But at the moment, it feels as though it's been frozen out of any probe. It says, look, can we start having some answers, please, from the UK? After all these accusations that are being hurled at us, very little evidence is being put forward to substantiate them.
Well, if Moscow is ready to participate in a constructive way in an international examination, I'm sure everybody would welcome that. It would also be a general sign that we make efforts to avoid what Boris Johnson says, the feeling that there is something like a new Cold War, which is absolutely not desirable. In fact, it would be a disaster.
Sure. How do you think then that Anglo-Russian relations will move on from here?
These relations have a long history. I happen to have just read the Maisky diaries, the memoirs or the diaries of a Soviet ambassador during World War II in London. And in my time as German ambassador in London, I followed very closely relations between the UK and Russia. It is so easy and probably almost natural to get very excited when something so terrible like in Salisbury happens. But I think beyond understandable and unavoidable and probably also necessary harsh reactions, now is the time to sit down and go through the facts which are available, study them thoroughly and professionally, and then come to conclusions. I would like to remind you that Germany and Russia, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, have a long and quite encouraging record of cooperations in dealing with the problem of chemical weapons. We provided technical know-how and also considerable amounts of money to help Russia to get rid of its large stocks of chemical weapons. And I think that is quite a successful and almost untold story of cooperation to improve security on our continent.
OK, Hans-Fredrik van Plotz, former German ambassador to Russia, thank you.